night at Glazing show. Hello, Rich. How are you today?
Hi, how are you today, Alana? Great to see you again.
Yeah, me too. I'm really happy to see you back. I'm okay too. So are you ready for our questions?
Yes, I am. Here we go.
So today's topic is GPR-C panel versus precast panel.
Okay, so we have facades of buildings. Obviously, a lot of designers and contractors are looking for newer, quicker, easier ways to build the building and make them safer and make them obviously more economical to build. So although it's not a new idea, I'm going to say it's taken off in popularity, so where I've seen significantly more buildings being made up of precast panels, and then to maybe just a little bit of a lesser extent, some GFRC panels. So we'll talk about precast panels first and the benefits of having a precast panel. So again, obviously, when we see a high-rise building being built in cities around us, you see big cranes, you see a lot of workers and a lot of stuff happening. You see a lot of concrete being poured, a lot of steel being built. So one of the items that I've seen now is precast panels being fabricated. Well, let's talk about what a precast panel is first before we talk about how they're installed.
Yeah,
so
what is a
panel.
precast panel?
Okay, so a precast panel is going to be a concrete panel that is poured and manufactured at a facility off the job site. If you think about let's call maybe a 10 to 12 story building being built, and you think about if there were bricklayers putting brick on the outside facade of the building, they'd have to scaffold the whole entire building to go left to right from the ground floor all the way up to the 10th to 12th floor, however tall the building is. You need scaffold there, you need to bring bricks up, you need to mix mortar, and it's just a lot of manpower. A lot of field labor is being utilized to make that facade happen on that building. So a precast panel is actually a formed panel, and there are a variety of sizes that can be made, but they're limited in their size by the size of a panel that can fit on a truck to transport from the facility to the job site. So you think of a big tractor trailer bringing these panels in, they might only be able to bring either 2 or maybe 4 panels at a time to the job site, depending on how big the truck is to bring them out there. But these panels can be 8 to 10 foot wide and maybe 20 foot tall. So it's a significant amount of square footage that's made into a panel under controlled conditions in a factory. So you have proper heat for curing of concrete. You have no rain or moisture inside the building because it's an enclosed building. You can work year round. So there's a lot of benefits to having this made in the factory, just that you can control your conditions, so that everything is under ideal situations. And then once you bring it out to a job site, there will be a crane and a much smaller crew. So now that crew will be able to lift these panels off that tractor trailer and hang them onto the structural support of the building. So right off the bat, within maybe 2 hours of time after the panels arriving on site, you now have this 10 foot wide by 20 foot tall. You just knocked out 200 square foot of a panel of a facade that's completely hung and set into place. And in a typical 8-hour crew session, they might be able to get 4 panels up. So I mean that's they'll get anywhere between 2 and 4 panels. And if they're smaller, maybe a couple more than that. I've seen smaller panels go up a little bit quicker. But again, just the fact that you're able to get a lot of square footage and enclose a building very quickly and under ideal situations, because it's perfect conditions. Like again, if you have bricklayers at a job site, it rains, nobody works that day because it's raining out, so you lose a day. So although you may lose the same day for rain with working with a crane, just for unsafe conditions, but once you get back to work, all of a sudden, bang, you knock out X amount of square footage off the side of the building. So now you're probably saying, hey, Rich, well, okay, that's great. But what does that have to do with facades and glass? You know, what we deal with. So how we deal with this is we will send our windows to this precast facility. So they're going to make for lack of a better word, I want to say a donut. So basically a big panel with a hole in the middle. Inside that hole, they'll put all the proper fastenings and, you know, anchors, so that way we can insert our window, or the precast company can insert the window into that panel. Then they caulk it. Again, caulk has to be done in certain temperatures. You can't go below like 40 degrees Fahrenheit and above. You know, you don't want to be caulking above probably, you know, 85, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're inside a factory controlled, you know, 70 to 60, 70 degree, you know, again, Fahrenheit degrees. And it's ideal situations for caulking. So you're getting the proper caulking. You're getting the man literally right in front of the window that he's caulking. You know, if not, if somebody's going to caulk a window, you know, that's field installed, how are they getting to the outside of a 12-story building? Now you have to hang a scaffold outside the building. So again, where we're going with this is by making a precast panel, it is very efficient in that it's done in a factory with factory workers, which is generally a little bit more cost effective than having field skilled laborers out there doing a specific trade. And then you're also going to include in that panel a window, a louver, you know, whatever it might be, a door system, you know, whatever you might have going on there. And then once, like say, it comes out there on the tractor trailer on the truck and it's lifted into place, all of a sudden you knocked out a lot of square footage. So it's becoming a little bit more common to see it done that way for those benefits. You say, hey, Rich, that's great. Well, why would somebody not want to use a precast panel then at that point?
Okay, yeah, so, that's what I was going to ask you.
Okay, so again, it's going to be, I'm going to say two reasons. The first one we're talking about is going to be, again, the design aesthetic. You're going to have an architect that says his vision, I want to see this whole facade of glass. So obviously, you know, a concrete panel, you need to have, you know, all the support. It's thick. You can't make an all glass facade. So you would use a unitized curtain wall system in an application like that. So you're limited to, you know, the size of a hole, but you're going to need the rails or the jambs on each side and the top, the head, and the sill below, just to make sure it's, you know, thick enough that it can support a window, a bay of windows, whatever it might be. I previously had sent some photos to you, so maybe, you know, if we can ask, I'm sorry, the gentleman who does our editing, if he could add some photos on, Derek, I'm sorry, there you go, I apologize, Derek, if he could add some photos on there so people can see, you know, a precast panel when it's in the factory on the ground, and then they can see how, you know, the size of these, and then, you know, you insert a window into it, you know, so we have some photos that have it, you know, before the window's installed and after the window's installed, and then again, just the ease of having that hung. So a disadvantage of this would be that the architect, if he's looking for a full glass facade, he would be able to achieve that look with a precast panel. The second thing is you say, well, Rich, okay, if these are coming on a tractor trailer and they're going up 12 stories up, how are we getting that panel way up there? If it's big, it's heavy, it's concrete, you know, and then you have a window and like, what size crane? How do you lift that panel? That's exactly it. You're going to be using some type of crane, whether it be a tower crane that's on the building or a crawler crane that's on the ground that has to lift these up. We've dealt with panels, or my company's got involved with that, but I've seen where we've supplied the windows to these companies before, where they lift these panels up. Some of these panels weigh, I want to say 5 tons.
Wow.
So that's 2,000 pounds in you know, in American. So it's figured 20,000 pounds. I've seen these panels weigh. So
that's so much.
Exactly. So now you think about all the support that's got to be there. Everything has to line up. You know, there are big bolts that you could adjust, you know, to straighten out the panel once it's hung, and then once it's get in its final place, you weld all the connections so that way nothing will ever move. But again, so now you need a specialized crane, and now you need a specialized crew that knows how to do the rigging to lift these panels, lift them, and then set them onto the building. So it's a specialized crew, but again, you know, you have specialized crews if you're doing brick off a facade anyway. So they've come up with this second type of panel called a GFRC panel, which is starting to gain a little bit more popularity in the industry now.
Why?
GFRC stands for a glass fiber reinforced concrete, GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete. So this panel is going to give you, again, that look of concrete. It's going to give you, and you can texture the concrete. So, you can, how again, it's going to be a panel that's formed in a factory. It's going to go in a form where you pour concrete in the form itself. And then again, however that form is, if there's a textured look to it, if there's a flush look to it, smooth look to it, however it is, that's going to be how the form is built, is how the face of the panel will look. But the difference between a GFRC panel and a precast panel is a precast panel might be maybe 8 to 10 to 12 inches wide. So it's a very thick, it's a solid concrete panel. It's got all reinforcing rebar, like all the stuff that you would normally have in a concrete pour is inside this panel because of the size of it, the weight of it, and just, the amount of force that's on it. So a GFRC panel is maybe 1 to 2 inches thick. So it's very thin. But what happens is when we say glass fiber reinforced, in the concrete, they add like almost fibers that are in there that interlock the concrete, because there's thousands or hundreds of thousands of these fibers that are in there, and then it just binds the concrete. So by putting these glass fibers in there, you're removing the structural steel rods that are in there, the reinforcing rods that are in there. And again, so obviously steel has weight. And then you're putting these little, thin microscopic, fibers in there, which is binding the concrete together and make it very strong. So it's an extremely strong product. But because it's so thin, that is not your main way of insulating your building. Because the precast panels are so thick, they have an insulating quality to them, even though you would still put a stud wall on the inside with insulation. But you have a serious thickness there, which is going to add a lot of structure to your building. So with a GFRC panel, you're going to have your carpenter build a stud wall, and they put dense glass and waterproof on the outside, and then we have a angled clip system that hang these panels. But now these panels are much smaller. I don't say much smaller. They're maybe in the area of 4 foot by maybe 10 foot tall. Sometimes a little bit bigger. And then it's going to be like almost like a jigsaw puzzle where you set your clips going across, and you're going to hang your panel on it. Now, again, this will be done from the outside of the building. So you need a scaffold or some type of scissor lift or something to be on the outside of the building with your crew to hang the panels. But they're lightweight. So a 2-man crew in a scissor lift can literally lift this panel, hang it on there, and set it into place. And again, because of the size of the panel, let's call it maybe 4 foot by 8 foot tall, 4 foot by 10 foot tall, 3 foot by 10 foot tall, whatever it's going to be, you're going to start hanging. A crew could probably set maybe 15 to 20 of these panels a day, and if you have a couple crews going on there, again, you're going to knock out a lot of square footage. But again, it's going to give you that exterior concrete look of a building, or however you want to design that concrete with designs going across it, or emblems embedded into it, whatever you want to do. And again, you can use different colors of concrete to give different shadings and different appearances. So it's going to be it's going to give you the concrete look, but I'm going to say it's more labor intensive because you need a separate crew to hang a wall, a stud wall with dense glass, and then waterproofing in front of you before you hang this on. And then you're going to, then your crew comes in, we put that clip system on, and then we hang this panel. So now in this scenario, we cannot send our windows to this company because in essence, this is almost like a jigsaw puzzle. So you're going to come out there, you're going to have panels from 1 to 500 numbered. So number 1 goes here, number 2 goes here, number 3 goes here, number 4 goes here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so going across. So you might have a window right in the middle. So panel number 3 might have a notch in it because it's the lower left-hand corner of the window. Panel number 6 might have a notch in the lower left corner, so the bottom half of the windows, and then you notch out. So each panel is going to be a different size, and then you have to follow a strict set of plans as to which panel goes in which location, so that way they properly fit and make the overall design intent of what the architect is looking for his or her aesthetic look. So I'm going to say it's going to give you that concrete look without having to bring a bunch of bricklayers out to the job site, to do a lot of field labor. It's going to give you, again, a uniform look. It's lightweight. It's going to be very strong because of the glass fibers that are inserted into the panels itself. And I'm going to say this is one of the more newer and more up and coming designs that I've seen here in New York City coming, that they're adding this a lot more now than what I've seen in the past. So, I mean, between both of these, the GFRC and the precast panels, these are both giving you almost a concrete or a stone look on your building, as opposed to what we previously spoke about with all glass facades and storefronts and everything like that. So when you want to go with a different aesthetic look, you might have a historical area of your city, and and your zoning committee might say, hey, we don't want to have a glass building in the middle of all brick buildings, so make a new building with new amenities and with all the with all the current newest designs, but make it look older. Both of these panel types, GFRC and precast panels, can achieve that look for you, but with all the modern conveniences built into it and all of the modern and new safety measures built into it, because both are built and fabricated in controlled atmospheres in a factory.
So what I understand is like GFRC panel is more usable than precast panel, because it's more thin and you can just like use it wherever you want, and you don't need like anything else. You can do it by yourself. You don't have to send it to a window factory and all that
Correct.
stuff.
Yes. Okay. But now personally, what I've seen, and again, I don't want to say this is the norm, but personally, what I've seen is I've seen GFRC on buildings up to maybe 18 to 20 stories. And I've seen precast panels going up, 60, 70, 80 stories tall. So again, because on a tower or a building that big, you're going to have a tower crane. So you have the ability to lift these big, heavy panels that high up off the ground. Whereas, again, you're going to have a hanging scaffold basically on the outside of a 20-story building to set these GFRC panels. Again, you don't want to hire a tower crane just to set, a lightweight panel. So I'm going to say that the GFRC might be limited to a set, again, that's going to be up to each individual owner of the building, what he wants to see. But I would think that GFRC would probably max out in that 20-story range from what I've personally seen here in New York City.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Okay.
So,
all right. So basically, again, the lightweight is what the benefit of a GFRC panel is. The thickness and the weight of a precast panel, and then knowing that you can go much taller with that, is going to be I don't want to say I guess it's going to be a benefit, because that's going to be your exterior facade of the building. So with one swoop of a crane, you have X amount of square foot hung on a building very quickly. Again, and we know it's under ideal circumstances of how it was built, because it was built in a factory where inspectors can come and visit it. They can do, slump tests with the concrete to make sure it's a proper pour. They can make sure the rebar is installed properly at the right locations. They can check the caulking of the window, because there you go. There's a good one. So if somebody wants to check the caulking of a window on the 42nd story of a building, how are you going to check the exterior caulking? You're going to be out there on a scaffold. If you check the caulking of the window while it's in a precast panel on the ground, that saves, your consultant a lot of time and a lot of field visits to have, not have to visit the site to check, that type of application, out in the field. So another little benefit there. So
so do you want to add anything else?
that's, again, like I say, I don't get involved with a lot of with either of these panels very much, because on a precast panel, I would send the windows to the company. I would visit the company to watch them install them, just to make sure that they're following all the standard procedures and make sure that all the steps are and all the caulking joints are performed properly. But I about the panels themselves, other than how they relate to windows, like I'm not, I don't know much more other than that from what I've seen out in the job sites and speaking with, the other project managers and coordinating, our trades together to make sure that we give the owner the proper product. So I think we're good there then.
Okay, so thank you very much for your information, Rich.
Okay, great. I look forward to our next session together. And it's been wonderful speaking about precast panels.
Me too. I'm looking forward to you too.
Thank you, Alana. I'll see you at the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.